must listen to this entire message before entering a selection. To accept this call, press 5. To refuse this call, hang up now. To block this call and all future calls, press none. You may enter a selection now.
Hello, welcome to Accept This Call podcast. I'm Aundrea.
I am Savannah.
And yeah, that's it. Bye.
See ya. Have a good night. That's it.
Yeah, of course,
the podcast. Oh, answer it.
Okay. Hello, Bug. There you are. Hello.
How are you yelling?
I'm not yelling. Why are you yelling?
You're yelling.
Why are you so cute?
Born this way.
Oh, okay.
Would you still like me if my name was Honeyman?
Yes, yes, I would. Do you know that we are recording for the podcast right now?
Oh, so Honeyman.
Yeah. What if you were the honeycomb man?
Oh, you don't want him around.
Oh, okay. Do
You
you?
want me to go shower and I'll call you back and I'll let you.
Yeah. Do you want to say hi to all your podcast fans?
How many fans do we got?
We got all the fans.
So now they know that I talk about Honeycomb Man and Honeyman.
Yep. That's okay.
Next time, let me know when I'm going to be on here so I can have more clever, witty stuff to say.
We'll say hi to everybody right now.
That was pretty much my hello. Hello, everybody.
Okay, yeah, go shower and call me back.
All right, I love you.
I love you too. Bye, babe.
I'm pretty.
That was cute. Well, there's like a good little intro. Hello, Benjamin. He should have been like, welcome to accept this call. He should have been like our intro guy. Yeah. He did not rise to the occasion. I'm just kidding. No. He did. He was good. Great.
Nope. Okay, so let's see. We're gonna talk about things you see on things you see on TV and movies regarding prison. There's a lot of things that are very true, and then there's a lot of things that they obviously dramatize for TV for entertainment purposes. So,
for sure. And again, just emphasizing that, it totally varies from facility to facility, state to federal. Everything's different, depending on where you go, different rules across the board. So
yeah,
we can only speak to what we know. And I love to hear the other stories of people who are saying, man, this person got in trouble for this, or that is going on at this prison. It's just fascinating to me to hear what all happens. So yeah.
I think we can just kind of kick off from last time. We were talking about family visits. A lot of places like California have family visits, which we talked about entails it's a little cottage on the prison campus, and the family's gonna come and spend time with their loved one incarcerated. And I mean, yeah, it's supposed to be family time, but of course that leads to families sometimes.
That's how it works. Because another name for what they don't call them conjugal visits, because that's one of the first things that you get asked when you tell somebody that you're dating somebody in prison is, how's those conjugal visits? And you're like, we don't get them.
Don't get them.
Sucks. We know it sucks. Yeah. Yep. So there's 3 different states, or 2 or 3, like Aundrea just said, that have them, and they call them family visits. So that's what she's talking about in that regard. And yeah, they serve their purpose. They're what they're there for, and I don't know a lot of the rules surrounding that. I know you have to be married. I know that in some states you have to be married for a certain amount of time, so there's a lot of rules around that, and I'd love to hear more about them from somebody who's experienced them.
I was just gonna say, if any of our listeners get to experience that, write us in, tell us stories, whether it's just a general story of how it works or a specific story. I think it's really cool. I think I mean, besides like the sex part, like just the concept of them, I think is really cool and very important in rehabilitation. You know, I think that's huge because a lot of the guys don't get, and you'll know when you go visit Jake, Savannah, like sometimes the guards are very like particular at least the state prisons in Iowa. Like when me and Ben have visits, a lot of times like I'll go and I'll just like touch his head or, you know, hair or grab his arm or something, and they're like, no touching above the elbow. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like one time we were in a visit and this mom, you could clearly tell it was a mom with a son, and his, bless his heart, his hair was just like a mess, and she was like standing up behind him and just kind of like combing it and just kind of, you know, making him look decent. And the guard came over to her and was like, nope, you can't be doing that. And I'm just like, these poor guys, like, not even, it wasn't even like a sexual thing. It was a mom and son.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Like, they don't get that like human touch a lot. So
I'm sure that in the guards and like the minds of them, it's a security type of thing. I'm sure that
absolutely.
that's what it is, but it's still bullshit. Like, to be
Yeah.
honest, you know what I mean?
And it's just
it sucks
interesting.
when
Go ahead.
it just sucks that there's people that abuse it, you know what I mean, and do the wrong thing with it and then get it taken away for everybody else. We touched on that in the last episode too, about like the school thing, you know, the laptop and everything you were telling us. But it just sucks when it's like you're ruining it for everybody by doing the wrong thing. So just like deal with it for what it is in the moment and get over the rules so that we can keep the little bit of freedoms that we do have. Yeah.
I just think it's super interesting, like you just said, how things different from state to state or federal from state and everything, because it's like a lot of state prisons do have those family visits, and then, you know, it would be interesting to know their security procedures going into that, whereas like places in Iowa, they don't even let you touch a face, you know. It's like, how is that like such an extreme, you know, difference? So
that's a really good point. Yeah, one of the questions that like I just said, one of the main questions that I always get asked is like about conjugal visits. So we reached out to our followers and we were like, what are some misconceptions that you have about, like, or not even misconceptions, like what are some things that you've seen on TV that you think about when you think about prison and that you're like, did it really happen that way? So we actually got quite a few questions, and I think Aundrea has them pulled up so she can just like rattle them off and we'll set the story straight. Yeah.
I think a cool, or for us at least, if anybody ever has watched Prison Break, so the guy in Prison Break gets a first-degree robbery charge, just like our boyfriend. Since he's in Illinois in that show, he only has to do like 5 years in that show, and that's true. Like, that's based on a true sentencing, and it's crazy how things like that differ too. So a lot of times when you do see like sentencing structures in TV and movies, it's not too far off either, you know. That they do a pretty good job as far as like sentencing go. Speaking of guards, somebody asked about like abuse from guards and bribing the guards to get away with stuff. Do you know anything?
I mean, the funny thing about this though too is that, so shout out to some of the guards at Fort Dodge, because I know that a couple of them watch this podcast. So I know. Yeah. So I'm like, what's up? Like, hey, I think that like, I'm sure that it goes on. Like, I'm sure that there's things that happen, because how else is stuff supposed to get in? If COVID can get in through employees, then I'm sure that other things can get in too. So, I think that I'm sure that it happens. I don't know anything about it. And to be honest with you, even if I did, I probably wouldn't say anything, just to be honest.
Yeah.
Which kind of sucks, but it's just the par for the course with this kind of thing.
I don't necessarily think there's abuse from guards. This is just my opinion in general, as far as like physical abuse that happens, at least not in Fort Dodge. I know in general, like abuse as far as like one of the guys has like multiple girls coming to visit him. It's just kind of common courtesy not to like say that.
Yeah.
You know, tell the guy like, hey, you know, like this is your main girl, but he also has 3 other girls coming to visit him. So a lot of times they do say something just to be, so that's gotten a lot of, what do I want to say, tension between like guards and incarcerated individuals. And I mean, like, I would appreciate it, you know,
For
like
sure.
and it was kind of funny when I think that a lot of them thought that because almost every time I would come visit Ben, I would have a different hair color. And I think there would be guards that would be like really nice to me. And then the next time they would be like really rude. And I'm like, I think they think I'm a different girl. So yeah, that was, but so that's gotten a little, I wouldn't say abusive, but it's definitely got a lot of guards and a lot of incarcerated individuals in trouble.
In regards to like abuse though too, Jake has told me like he's never said that like a guard was kind of like throwing somebody around or anything, you know. In county jail, when he was in jail, he definitely kind of roughed around with like the guards there, just because he was like a punk kid. But he will flat out tell me like he's like, this guard's a dick, like get on power trips, or they're just like super strict trying to do their job, and it just comes off as like being an asshole. But I've never heard personally about like this guard was like, you know, beating this guy up or anything like that.
Right,
you know what
exactly.
I mean?
And then bribing the guards, I don't think that at least not there. At least not anybody that our guys associate with bribes any guards. I know that like when Ben was in Fort Madison, that he didn't really like bribe guards, but a lot of the guards did like him, so they would like be like, oh, I have this extra sandwich from like McDonald's here, do you want it, you know? So it's kind of like that. And then as far as like drugs go and stuff like that, it just like, this is all I have to say. A lot of prisons didn't have visits for months at a time because of COVID, yet drugs were still coming in. So it's like, you put
how does
two
that
together.
work? Yeah, like what's the common thing here, you know?
Yes.
So yeah. And again, I don't personally, and honestly, like I'm telling you this like straight from my heart, I don't know anything about it. He hasn't, like, Jake's never told me anything about like this guy in particular. Keep in mind, all of our conversations have been recorded on the phone, you know. You just gotta be careful with stuff like that. You know, you never really know. And that's a common theme, I think, with like incarceration in general. There's always someone watching.
Yeah. And then somebody also asked about like making alcohol. I know that like in a lot of prison shows and stuff, you see them like making alcohol in the toilet. I don't know how it's done. I don't want to know how it's done. I don't want to know like what supplies you need to do it. I have no idea. But it's like, I barely want to drink alcohol from the store. Like, I can't even imagine like wanting to drink alcohol that bad that I would drink it, make it in a toilet and drink it.
Yeah. I know that like I know it's like disgusting, honestly, but there's a lot of like, I think it happens. And kind of like you mentioned this about Ben saying that they don't get a lot of fruit in there. And I'll tell you that there's a reason for that. And there's also a reason that they can't have real sugar. They can't have real sugar packets. They have to have Splenda or like a sugar substitute, because it's easier to make what they call hooch. We just talked about that. There's probably a reason that they don't get a lot of fruit, and there's a reason that they don't have sugar. So that gives you a little bit of the recipe, just a tiny little bit.
I mean, that makes sense for sure. This person asked about like sex everywhere with everyone, even with the guards. That I'm not aware of. I think.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, okay. So, I know that it's more of a problem in Mitchellville, which is an Iowa detention center for women. I've heard a few different stories about that. Like, there's guards that get fired every single week in that prison. I think it's maybe because, like, honestly, I don't know. I don't know what the main psychological root is in it, but that's just a statistic. In Fort Dodge, I actually know of a specific person who was a guard there. She's a woman, and she started a relationship with someone that was incarcerated and got fired, and they're still together. And she also, at one point, brought in a phone for that incarcerated person. So that's kind of another question that we have that we can jump into, after this one is over. But that's one example that I know of, but I don't know how often it happens otherwise. In regards to like male to male sex in there, like among the people themselves, like I know that it's happening, and it's usually like the people that are doing it, I think, are pretty open about it for the most part. Yeah. But I make fun of Jake all the time. I always call him gay, and he gets really mad. But he like he is such a flirty boy. Like, and he's so pretty. So
yeah.
I don't know. I'm just saying.
Mm.
I don't know.
And so that leads us to another discussion of just kind of all of it. Somebody asked, how do they record TikToks? And it's obviously a contraband telephone. They, use the data from it. Go on like Twitter too. You can follow quite a few, at least I do, quite a few guys who are incarcerated that tweet on there. And I think that's super, even though it's contraband, I think it's super cool and super important because they give you stuff that's happening in real time. And one of my favorites, let me tell you, Railroaded Underground. And so he doesn't say like where he's in prison at. He doesn't, I'm sure if they really wanted to, they could track like it. But he or she, just like the whole COVID thing, constant updates wherever that person's at, does see a lot of abuse apparently from guards, like physical abuse, and hears it. And so I can't even imagine, like, ugh.
Yeah. And and when it comes to like the penalties for that kind of stuff, I know that the penalty would be so different in Iowa than it would be in like Texas, because like in the federal prison system, that's like you get 20 days in the hole, and like maybe you lose, I don't know what kind of privilege, but like it's not really a huge deal, which, I mean, it's hard for me to fathom that because you hear all the time about it being a huge deal. But in Iowa, like it would be, you would lose a lot of stuff if you brought in contraband in regards to that. But other places, it must not be as like, I don't know, as big of a deal because there are so many TikTok accounts and stuff like that, and they must be pretty good at hiding it. So
I think it's interesting to see those people who are incarcerated that do have cell phones, because just like how the prison is set up is so weird, because a lot of times you'll see a guy and he's in like a gin pop area, I'm assuming, and it's just like a 3 bunk bed, and then right next to him is another 3 bunk bed, and so like a whole room is just filled with like bunk beds, and it's just like, whoa, that's a lot of people in one room. Like, how do you control that?
Setup.
And then you have the guy on TikTok or on Facebook Live or whatever it is, and it's like, where are the guards?
I know.
How is this happening?
And they're like, baby, come give me some, whatever they're doing. Yeah. I see that one way too much. They love that one.
A lot of people asked about gangs or just kind of like the dramatization of stuff that you see on like TV or movies.
I think a lot of stuff, there are definitely gangs. Like, there are gangs. Again, it's Iowa, so what kind of gangs they are?
Yeah, like the farmers versus non-farmer. No.
Right, versus the city folk.
Yeah.
But like, I think it's all kind of more hush-hush because nobody really wants to get in trouble. And so sometimes, like, they'll go on lockdown or restricted movement because there will be a gang related fight out on the yard where people like fashion shivs out of whatever they did, but it's not nearly as, it doesn't seem to me anyways, as tense as it seems in movies. It's not like a constant battle between the Bloods and the Crips or whoever, it's a little podunky Iowa, but maybe they're hardcore. I don't know.
Yeah. Except for one time I was on the phone with Benjamin. This just reminded me, it wasn't a gang fight, but just fights in general. And we were talking and I heard like this noise in the background, and usually I can like tune it out, and I was just like, what is that noise? He's like, it's not funny, but it's kind of funny. He's like, oh yeah, there's just a fight right here. He's like, some dude is beating up another dude with a wet floor sign. I was like, what? And it was just
I
like,
just imagine like big tall Ben just like looking down like, yeah, it's right here.
Yeah.
Like, no big deal.
And that's like another thing is just like how what I wanted to say, like they're so used to seeing this stuff and it doesn't bother them.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of times. Like I was like, do you think you should tell somebody? And he's like,
yeah,
I can't tell anybody.
Like, mind my business.
Yeah. And I was just like, that's so weird to me. Like, that's so crazy. Somebody asked, do they really yell through the floors and vents at each other?
I think they do in jail, but I don't think they can, like, they'll yell across the way to their guy on the other side, but there's no need for that.
No, unless you're in solitary, then they do, of course. But, otherwise, no. And then I just asked about, like, so another thing I find interesting is kind of like on a more serious note, a lot of people will support like celebrities and people of status who have been incarcerated or like think they're cool or whatever the case may be, but then in real life, in like everyday ordinary life, you can be like, yeah, I'm in a relationship with somebody incarcerated, and they're like, what? And it's just like, okay, how are you not going to support me, but then you support Chris Brown?
And you're not even the one that did the crime. You're just
like how,
girlfriend.
Or like, you know what I mean? Like, how do you support
R. Kelly?
R. Kelly, or, you know, like
O.J. Simpson from way back in the day. People still like, obviously he was acquitted the first time, but
have these like big crimes, whether they're guilty or not, you're still supporting them with a record of some sort. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Or even like Cardi B. Like I love Cardi. And then, you know, it came out that she was in a gang and she would drug men and steal their money and rob them. And everybody's like, you know, especially women, they were like, hell yeah. Like, but it's like, okay, guess what? My boyfriend is in prison for first-degree robbery. And they're like, oh God, oh,
I know. So like, how can you support someone like that?
Yeah. So I think that's interesting. Like another person my mom and I were talking about was like Martha Stewart. Granted, it wasn't anything like violent, but she's still in prison. I think she only had to serve like 2 months or 5 months, I think it was. But it's like she's still out here like selling shit and cooking and
having a TV show with Snoop Dogg. What? We both did that. Yeah. It's a good show though.
I haven't seen it.
It's good.
So I don't know. I just find it interesting that people will support these celebrities and people of status when they have like records, but then you can't like support your friends or best friends or, you know, brother, sister, cousin, whatever, when they're in a relationship with somebody incarcerated. So, or that even incarcerated person. So I think that's interesting too.
I think it's interesting, and I agree with you for sure, to just like look at your implicit biases and see like if it's just because they're of a higher status in society than we are. Is it because they're more white collar, more glamorized, they have money? What's the real reason behind why you're supporting them and their ideals, but you can't look at somebody else on an individual basis and do the same thing?
Yeah. like my friend Jordan said, like free Aunt Becky.
You
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
From Full
Lori
House.
Loughlin.
Yeah, and it's just like, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like it's hard for me to be like biased or like feel one way or another, because it's just like, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see other people with a similar charge to hers, to see how long they got in prison, you know?
For sure. It's more of those like white collar crimes.
I think those a lot of time are more interesting as far as like white collared crimes go than like violent or, you know, even drug related crimes. It's like, wow, like, it's kind of just like, I don't know how to feel about them.
I think it definitely puts the emphasis more on like property versus person, and I think that's something that you look at is like, to her, she has all this money, so she's going to abuse it and use it in the way that she wants. But when you attach it, you know, a crime to a person, it's different. But some people think, you know, money is more important than people. Some people think people are more important than money. It just kind of, it all goes down into like a very deep-seated psychological thing, for sure. Yeah. My friend, real quick, my friend Nicole has asked this question a couple times. I'm going to address it for her because she's curious. She wants to know if they have a garden in there. I don't know why she's so curious about the garden.
That. So cute.
But yeah, I'll answer it, and then I'm gonna sign off because Jake should be calling me again soon.
Yeah.
But they do have a garden in Fort Dodge actually, and Jake just got tomatoes from the garden. They have people in there that will tend to it, like a greenhouse is what they actually have. However, there's never been a body found in the greenhouse. Like in Orange is the New Black.
Yeah.
People are usually pretty well-meaning. There's no craziness like that. They're pretty well, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Regulated in those kinds of things. So yes, they do have a garden / greenhouse, which gives them like access to tomatoes, cucumbers. I think that there was something, lettuce, maybe not. I don't know, but they do. They have a greenhouse.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But never. I mean, if it doesn't involve like working out or like work or sports.
Yeah. Or honeysuckle or honeyman.
Honeycomb man, something like that.
Whatever it is. That's so funny. But yeah.
If you have, tell us your stories, especially if they're about like conjugal family visits.
I'd love to hear about it.
I know. I want to know. I'm so intrigued by that.
I know. Write to us. Follow us on all social media, Twitter, Facebook, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, obviously if you're watching this on YouTube or wherever, and write to us toacceptthiscall@gmail.com. We haven't gotten any emails in a while. What's up with that? Send us an email just to say hello. We're not falling on deaf ears. It'd be awesome. But yeah, this is a fun just a quick little episode to kind of address some of the things that people have in their heads already that might not be true. Yeah.
So if you have any other questions about what you see on TV, like if you're watching something, just be like, I wonder if that happens in real life, and just send us a little message. So
we'll tell you.
Yeah.
I feel like we're very responsive too. Like, and I love to talk about it. And I know you do too. So like, just ask us anything. And again, I feel like we're kind of creeping more and more towards like the sex episode, which is another question you get asked a lot. So maybe next season we'll have to have some sort of like very sexually explicit episode. Just explaining how that works.
Family, do not listen.
Exactly. Yes. Bye, Mom. See you later. Like, you can sit this one out, please.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was it. Good little episode.
Yeah.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for tuning in. Bye, guys.